Hello there, my name's Karen Atkinson from Mindfulness UK, and thank you so much for joining me. It's so lovely to be here and being given this opportunity to be able to talk to you about mindfulness. So what I'd like to do first of all is to just start off with a practice. It's always a good place to start. So what I'd like to invite you to do is to bring your feet onto the floor. If it feels okay for you, closing your eyes. Bringing your attention to your posture. So whether you're standing or sitting or perhaps lying down, just noticing how your body's feeling. And making any little adjustments you feel would make you more comfortable in this moment. Becoming aware of your feet on the floor, your legs, your lower back, the whole of your spine, the shoulders, your arms and hands. Being aware of your hands perhaps touching each other. Being curious, how does that feel? Are they warm or cool? And then taking your attention up through your shoulders, your neck, maybe just moving your head around a little just to notice how your neck is feeling. Aware of the position of your head and your face. Feeling into the expression on your face. Noticing if there's any tightness or tension, or if it feels soft and open. Simply being aware of how you're feeling in your face in this moment. And being aware of your breath. And by that I mean feeling the movement in your body as the breath comes in and out. We're not trying to change the breath in any way, just noticing the ebb and flow. There's no judgment here, no right or wrong, good or bad. We're observing, experiencing our breathing as it is right now in this moment. Perhaps noticing the experience of the air coming in through your nostrils with the in-breath, the inflation of the lungs, and then as you breathe out, the air crossing the back of your throat and coming out through your nostrils. And if you really pay attention, you may be able to sense into the changing temperature, the coolness, perhaps of the air coming in and how our bodies warm the air. So feeling that as you exhale. Anchoring ourselves in this moment as we breathe in and out through the nostrils. And as if we're dropping a pebble into a pond of still, crystal clear water, allowing that attention, that awareness to ripple out, sensing into the whole of the body, the experiences in your body as you sit, stand or lie. Also being aware of your emotions, how you're feeling in your heart centre and in your mind. Where are your thoughts? Just noticing your body, heart and mind right now. And then as we come to the end of the practice, next time you breathe out, I'd like to invite you just to bring your chin down to your chest, blinking open your eyes, maybe have a roll of the shoulders. Good. All right, so what I'd like to do in this session, we've got about 25 minutes, and I'd like to just take you through what mindfulness is, and maybe start to look at how mindfulness really has helped me in my life, and then look at how perhaps you could start to learn about mindfulness a little bit more if that's something you're interested in. And then if we can, we're going to end with a practice. So what I'd also like you to do is, if you've got any questions for me, just type them in and I can answer them as we go along. So if there's anything specific that you'd like to for me to talk about, then please do ask me. Lovely. All right, so what is mindfulness? Mindfulness, very clearly, and probably one of the most profound aspects of mindfulness, is awareness. It helps us to develop our awareness of all sorts of different things. So it helps us to develop awareness of our physical body. I don't know if you noticed when you were sitting there doing that practice, perhaps you noticed that you were holding on to some tension. Maybe there was some discomfort somewhere. Maybe you've got a slight pain, but also maybe you noticed that actually there were parts of your body or your breath that felt very smooth or open or soft. So we carry our bodies around with us. They really help us getting from A to B, and help us obviously very much in our day, but sometimes we don't give our bodies enough attention. So by bringing our awareness to our physical body, it gives us a choice as to perhaps making a change. So if we notice that we have tension in our shoulders, we can just roll the shoulders back, or we can adjust our posture so that we can breathe more freely. So lots of different ways of bringing our awareness into our physical body and the effect that it really does have on us. It also helps us to become aware of our mind and our thoughts. So just being aware of our mind's capacity to just go off various random tangents. That's what our minds do. It's absolutely what our minds are designed to do, and that's okay that they do that. But just being aware of our patterns of thought can be really, really useful. So when we do our practice, what that does, it's like putting our cells under a microscope. And so we notice all sorts of different things that happen within our practice that then will have a ripple effect out there into our everyday life. So becoming aware of our thoughts, noticing what our habits are, the same thoughts that we have over and over again, very often critical thoughts. So very often thoughts that come up about perhaps not being good enough, or that people are not looking after you well, or that you're very hard on yourself, or all sorts of different things may well arise for you. And that's a really, really useful aspect of mindfulness, is to help us to become aware of the thoughts And then again, we can choose to do something differently with those thoughts. So the awareness at the outset is really useful. And then in conjunction with that is the awareness of your emotions, probably around those thoughts, or maybe around your physical body. So if we're feeling physically a little bit anxious or a little bit tight, what emotion is associated with that? Or what emotions precipitate us feeling tight or anxious in our body, butterflies or tightness in the chest or whatever. So just noticing all of that and bringing our attention and our awareness to it, again, it can really help us to feel grounded and present and not be so caught up in it. And just being aware of it is very, very useful. So I've used the word awareness a lot, but also I've slipped in the word attention a few times. So by being aware and by paying attention. So we're being attentive to our experiences, and those experiences are coming through our sense doors, which is quite a nice way of talking about what's coming into our eyes. So what can we see? What can we smell and taste? So we can bring mindfulness to our eating, our drinking. We can have a lovely mindful cup of tea, a cup of coffee or whatever, a mindful meal. So being aware of our smell and taste, but also being aware of our hearing. We can do some lovely practices, mindfulness of sounds. So really anchoring our attention, our awareness in external sounds perhaps. Or maybe the sound of our breath, our heart beating, or the sound of our digestive system working. So it's using our senses to really anchor ourselves in the present moment. Our sense of touch, of course. So we can go through mindful movement. Mindful movement is most directly related practice to our daily life. So when we're doing mindful movement, it's a time when our awareness of how our bodies move and how we feel as we move, what comes up for us emotionally and psychologically when we move, it gives us sort of a window into how we are in our daily life. And I think many more insights are gained through moving mindfully than actually sitting, watching the breath, or doing a practice as we did at the very beginning of this. So just being aware of that is really, really helpful. And then I also think of the mind as another sense. So noticing what is happening in your mind as like a sense organ. What's arising for us? How are we interpreting things? Is it about us, or are we interpreting things about other people, imputing things onto other people? So bringing our awareness and our attention to that is helpful too. So they're our sense doors, if you like, our sight, smell, taste, touch, and hearing, and our mind is the sixth sense in my view. So as well as awareness of your sense doors and what's going on for you, and bringing your attention to it, mindfulness very much helps us to see our habitual styles. So our habitual styles of thought and of behaviour. So how we behave to ourselves, how self-critical we are perhaps, how we often put other people first and what that's like, and all sorts of other habits around our behaviours. Maybe how we relate to other people. Do certain people spark us off and press our buttons? And noticing how we communicate with other people. Do we always talk over other people because we want to get our point across? Or are we such listeners, do we sit back so much that actually we don't tap into our own needs? And perhaps we are more, and most of our attention is on other people, when actually it would be really useful to be connected to ourselves. It also takes us out of autopilot. So we do things automatically, and we do it without thinking. And an example of that is possibly driving. If you drive, say, on the school run or go to work every single day, and you go down the same route, perhaps you're so busy thinking of other things that when you arrive, you can't really remember how you got there. You can't remember the bit of the journey. So that's us being on autopilot. And we often are living our lives in that way. So we're always living our lives sort of moving on to the next thing. What do I have to do next? What do I have to get? Where do I have to be? What do I have to buy? And so on. So really having to move forwards and sort of projecting forwards, which means that we miss out on the joys and the pleasures and the experiences of our everyday from moment to moment. So it takes us out of autopilot and enables us to anchor ourselves in the present moment. And within the present moment, noticing whether we're making judgments about ourselves or other people in that moment. Judgments can really be difficult for us sometimes, and it's helpful to notice when we're being judgmental about ourselves or others. So ironically, when you start to do mindfulness, very often you become more judgmental, and because you become aware of how judgmental you are, which is an interesting experience in itself. And it's just something to notice, and often that just sort of starts to settle after a while. Another aspect, a really important aspect, is the development of kindness. So noticing how kind we can be in each moment, how we have the opportunity from moment to moment to be kind, to be generous to ourselves. And that's something that perhaps we're not very good at in the West. We are often very kind and compassionate to other people, but we kind of forget ourselves. And so by just bringing your attention to your breath is an act of kindness. By bringing your attention to how you're feeling in your body and maybe altering your body so that it feels more comfortable is a kindly thing to do. So all sorts of aspects, how we can bring our attention to how kind or maybe not so kind we are to ourselves, and then how we can incorporate kindness, self-nurture, compassion to help to feel that we're supporting ourselves. And that really encourages our sense of resilience and resourcefulness, so that we know if we develop that through our practice, we know that when we go out into the big world, when we are talking to people, perhaps at work, or a challenging relationship issue, that actually we will be kind to ourselves in that situation, and we'll just look after ourselves and feel much more resourced around that. So another really big and significant parts of mindfulness is around how many of us live our lives ruminating about past experiences. He did this, she should have done that, I'm like this because of. And whilst it's really helpful to have an understanding of your past and how you have become who you are, actually it's not helpful to be stuck in that. Just rethinking it, talking about it over and over again, ruminating about it in our minds, it warms up the neural circuitry so that we keep reliving it, re-traumatizing sometimes, by just thinking about the past. And so training our brain, and it is an absolute training, it's like training a muscle in a gym. By training our brain, we're enabling ourselves to first recognise if it's a habit that we're always thinking about the past, and secondly, bringing ourselves back into the present moment so that our lives can be enriched, they can be more fulfilled. So that's something that some people do. Something that perhaps we do as a mind trap as well is to catastrophise about the future. So thinking, well, if it's like this now, it's going to get much, much worse in the future, and then start to really worry about that. So I think that's true of in everyday life, but more particularly if you're suffering with a condition, a health condition, whether it's physical or psychological or emotional. We can think, well, if we're like this now and we don't get help, or we don't know what to do as we get older, then it may well get worse. Or maybe just a situation. One may feel that it will escalate over time. Of course, whatever we think is going to happen usually doesn't transpire at all. And it's just us catastrophizing about what the outcome might be, and it's actually a huge waste of energy. It usually doesn't work like that at all. So mindfulness helps us to stop the ruminating thoughts, the catastrophizing thoughts, and helps to really anchor us in the present moment. So for me, that's what mindfulness has brought in my life. It's also helped me to see that I have choices around the way I live my life, how I think, how I feel. If I notice that I'm doing either of those catastrophizing or ruminating habits, then I can bring myself to the present by feeling my feet, by feeling into my body or my breath. And so that's a huge difference for me from the past. So the choice and the space that it creates around us and around me. So noticing when I'm being reactive and actually recognising, oh, here's an impulse to be reactive. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a breath. I'm going to just anchor myself here and now, and then give myself a little bit of time to respond. So it might be just a millisecond that I do that, but it may be longer. I may decide that actually I can't have this conversation right now. I've got to take myself away and think about it and then come back and respond appropriately, rather than being reactive by being angry or whatever. Okay. And I just wanted to say a little bit about how you can start to learn about mindfulness. I feel very passionately about the changes and the differences that mindfulness can create for us in our bodies, hearts and minds over time. And I've been teaching it now in the clinical setting for about 18 years. So I have got hundreds and probably thousands of people who've been through programs with me, many of whom have had life-changing experiences as a result of doing mindfulness. So I know how it's really helped and supported me in my life, and I'm really passing on that message to support other people and having similar experiences to me. So I do strongly believe that doing the 8-week program is the best way forward, the 8-week mindfulness-based stress reduction program, and preferably in a group, or if you can't do it in a group for whatever reason, doing it one-to-one with a teacher, wherever. So obviously the teacher has to be schooled, they have to be very professional, they have to have done all the trainings and have the regulations in place, so that you know that they have they know exactly what they're doing and how to teach it in a very experienced and skillful way. So doing 8 weeks, which is 2 hours a week, every week for 8 weeks, and as part of that you learn all sorts of different practices, coping strategies, all sorts of techniques and so on, to really help to change the way that you approach your world and your difficulties. And it helps to make also the brain changes, so that the neurological changes will take place in that 8-week period to help the body to feel less stressed and to feel more calm and relaxed and more able to cope. So my suggestion is that if you want to pursue this, you find a really good teacher locally and do it in a group, or do it one-to-one, either individually or via Skype. If you can't do that, then doing an online course is the next best option. And I would always suggest if you were doing an online course, it might be useful to also have a Skype session just to help to go through the inquiry process, to really help to support the practice that you're doing. All right, so what I'd like to do is just to finish off with doing another short practice. So just coming to that same upright posture that you were in before, perhaps closing your eyes and feeling into your breath. So you've been listening to me talking, so perhaps just noticing how you're feeling in your sense doors. So you've been watching me, your mind's been working, maybe noticing how you're feeling in your physical body, just being aware of that. And what I'd like to invite you to do is just to go through a very short body scan practice, starting at your toes, just noticing how you're feeling in your toes, the feet on the floor. So I'm not asking you to move in any way or to do anything, just rest your attention here, through your ankles, up through your legs, to your knees, your thighs, buttocks. Feeling the movement perhaps of your belly, the rib cage, the spine, the shoulders, with the breath. Noticing how you're feeling in the whole of your back, your front, maybe inside. Feeling the rise and fall of your shoulders with the breath. How you're feeling in your arms, down through your elbows to your forearms, and where your hands are resting, touching each other. And then noticing again how you're feeling in your neck and shoulders, in your head, and in particular in your thinking sensations, your scalp. And coming back down through your body to the breath and belly. And holding your whole body in a sense of kindly awareness. Just taking these few moments for yourself is an act of self-nurture, self-kindness, compassion. And then very gently, when you're ready, opening your eyes and have a stretch. Good, so thank you very much for joining me, and I would be really happy to chat to you further, so if you wanted to email me or maybe message me on Facebook and have more of a conversation about mindfulness, then I'm really happy to talk about it any time. So I look forward to connecting with you again in another way, hopefully soon. All right, thank you very much.